This is another question from Dave, and it relates to a passage taken from my book, The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. And it says there, the body produces amino acids and proteins from the nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen molecules contained in the air. And he says that that statement goes against well-established scientific knowledge. And I tend to disagree with you in the respect that certainly this is not a statement that can be backed by scientific research, but then I don't rely very much on scientific research for the things that I've come to realize and understand to be correct. Most of the things that I've done, for example, the Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush, that is certainly not based on any scientific research that is standing out, that is just promoting the idea that we have a lot of stones in the bile ducts of the liver. In fact, if you ask any doctor, he would say this is hogwash, that there is no truth to it. You have to dig deeper and find the actual statements that were made by Johns Hopkins University and many other universities, that there are these intrahepatic gallstones in the bile ducts of the liver, but most doctors, they don't take it seriously. In fact, they don't even know about it. There are other things that are known in science, but they are not applied. There are things that are backed by scientific research and they're completely wrong, where the science has never actually been proven to be right. The New England Journal of Medicine once wrote an article based on scientific research stating that 85 to 95% of everything that the medical system, the hospitals and doctors practice in their practices is actually not backed by scientific research. So there is not much science in science, in other words, and I have learned to rather rely on observation, what I've discovered through my own experiences on myself and on hundreds and thousands of people around the world. And what I discovered is that, in fact, I've looked at many people who had no need for eating food, that there were breatharians who never eat food. And so when you think of that, where in the body is the body capable of producing proteins from nothing? And you have to you create a circumstantial evidence to show that in fact the body doesn't die in these cases when they don't eat anything. So where is the carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and oxygen coming from that are the constituents of proteins when the person doesn't eat anything that contains these elements? We know that carbohydrates consist of carbon, oxygen and hydrogen molecules. So carbohydrates, when ingested, can supply us with the sugars that we need in order to sustain the cells. Then we have nitrogen in the air. We also have nitrogen in protein foods. And so if a person doesn't eat protein foods, then he somehow, according to the science, would not be able to sustain himself, because most or all the cells in the body are made of protein. So where is the protein coming from? Again, going back to the question, how do breatharians survive? I've seen them live for several years without eating anything. I know one person he's 100 years old and he has never eaten a thing. in his life. And he has other gifts and abilities, but that really doesn't matter in this respect. The main question is, why can people without eating protein live comfortably and healthily? Where are they manufacturing the proteins from? What are the ingredients? Where are these ingredients or components come from? In my own case, I stopped eating animal protein or any concentrated proteins when I was 18 years old due to severe illness, and I had eaten too much protein. In fact, I became protein deficient because I ate so much protein that it clogged up my intestines and the membranes. The mucus lining was so thick because it tried to defend itself against these undigested proteins, and so the body wouldn't even digest and absorb any food properly because of overeating proteins. So there is a limit as to how much protein the body can ingest or digest without becoming ill. And we now know, according to research from the National Institute of Cancer, which tested 550,000 Americans and found there was an increased risk of dying from eating regularly meat, chicken, and turkey and other meat products simply from eating meat. So obviously there's something not quite right in the picture that science is delivering us. My concept that we are pretty much self-sufficient when it comes to protein needs to be proven now, but there is no scientist who is ever going to attempt that because there is no money to be made of this. When you tell people that they don't need to eat protein, you will have the food industry after you. So I'm not making false claims. These claims are based on practical life experiences with many people, with myself. So the question still remains, and if anyone could answer that, why, when I don't eat any protein foods, does my body still make proteins? And we know that every protein is composed of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And since the air is supplying me with these particular substances and also atoms, and also I get some through the food, like carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen in carbohydrates, in vegetables, fruits, and grain foods. But certainly there is not enough nitrogen in these foods to maintain the functions and the changeover or turnover of cells in my body at a rate of 30 billion per day. I suffer from zero protein deficiency, so that is reason enough for me to continue eating the way I am without eating any protein foods, except some nuts and seeds here and there, occasionally some legumes and some avocado, but that's about it. Certainly not enough to create these massive amounts of proteins that we supposedly need in order to sustain ourselves. So I hope that raises more questions in your mind, and every person has to do whatever they need to do in order to feel good and be healthy. So if eating meat makes you healthy, then go for it. If eating a vegetarian diet makes you healthier, then go for that. I'm not telling people what they should or should not eat. I'm making recommendations based on my findings. I consider myself a scientist in the field of natural medicine. I've studied mind-body medicine for many years. I'm a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine, which is the oldest system of medicine, which, by the way, also doesn't favor or never tell anyone to eat concentrated proteins as found in meat, chicken, fish. So for a science of that age, 7,000 years old, to have you made conclusions, that is far more science to me than modern science, which is heavily flawed and who has a track record of accuracy of about 10–15%, should we believe the studies that were done by the New England Journal of Medicine, the World Health Organization, and the wing of Congress, the American Congress, which clearly shows that there is not much science behind science. Thanks so much.